Today is the last day of classes, spring 2016, and later today we have senior assembly and senior banquet. And I have with me three wonderful students who are all seniors about to graduate. And I'll have each of them introduce him and herself to you and tell you a little bit about themselves. And we'll start with Mercedes McAlpine.
Hi, I'm Mercedes. I'm a senior here at Amherst, a Black Studies major. I'm from New York, so this is a little ways away, not too far. And I've had a pretty awesome experience at Amherst. I do cheerleading, I'm a dance club, and just really involved in community engagement, and that's really been my life here at Amherst. So.
Now, Mercedes, not only were you on the cheerleading squad, you founded the Spirit Squattin.
Yeah, I did.
One of your many achievements here. And we'll
you.
come back to that in a moment. Juan Gabriel, Delgado, Montes, introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. As Biddy said, my name is Juan Gabriel, and I'm originally from La Paz, Bolivia. So it also is a little bit of a ways away. And on campus, I'm in economics and a political science major, and I've been involved in as a residential counselor and the student government mostly, and I've actually had also a great experience here. Common threads.
Rachel Abernathy, you're from San Diego, right?
I am from San Diego.
Introduce yourself.
I am a Black Studies major, and I am really involved with residential life and women's soccer on campus. They've both been really wonderful experiences for the majority of my time here, but I've also spent a lot of my time trying to figure out ways to connect with alums and different groups on campus. So actually one of my best experiences has been working with facilities, for instance, and another is working with the Women of Color Forum, which I'm sure we'll talk about more.
I think two of you wrote theses, is that right?
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about your thesis, Rachel?
Sure. So my thesis is about Black feminist literature. I studied Audre Lorde's Zammy and Elaine Brown's A Taste of Power and Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And I was looking at ways in which, through the process of writing, Black women can define and liberate themselves. And so I became really interested in the idea of truth sharing and storytelling and ways that being vulnerable and brave and courageous and presenting the most authentic version of yourself in writing is really an integral process to survival.
I want to come back to that question of storytelling in a moment and ask all three of you about it. But Juan Gabriel, tell us about your thesis.
So my thesis is in political science, and it's based on three pillars. I'm looking at how education, discrimination, and labor informality work together. Now these topics are useful for human and economic development, which is a very personal interest of mine, professional interest of mine. And so I'm looking to what degree, for example, can education help people escape informal employment, which is the kind of employment that most people in the developing world face without access to social security or any kind of labor rights. And so I'm looking to what extent can education help individuals escape informality, and also how does that change in the context of discrimination? And I'm looking at Peru, where indigenous Quechua, Aymara, and Amazonian indigenous peoples are often discriminated, to see to what extent there's a difference there. And there is a difference there, as we would expect, but it's most pronounced at secondary education rather than at primary education or tertiary education, which was an interesting finding.
Very interesting finding. All three of you have plans after graduation. Tell us a little bit about those.
So I'm working at Northfield Mount Hermon next year, which is a boarding school just down the road, as a University of Pennsylvania fellow in a teaching residency program. So I will be basically a residence counselor all over again, but for high school students, and coaching soccer and teaching English and getting my master's in education.
That's wonderful. So being a University of Pennsylvania fellow involves a master's degree, is that?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
Juan Gabriel, what about you?
So I'm going to be in Boston next door. I'll be working for Deloitte Consulting as a business analyst. So I'm very excited about that. I've had experience in the sector of nonprofits and the public sector, but I haven't really been exposed to the private sector. So I think this is a very useful way for me to learn quick about how everything that happens in the private sector.
Wonderful. And Mercedes, you're going to Baltimore.
I am. I'm going to be interning at the Baltimore Magazine as a style editor intern for the summer. So I'm really looking forward to that. So just continuing sort of my interests here. So
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Did any of you use the Career Center as a way of getting internships or looking for positions?
Absolutely. I think the Career Center was extremely useful for me, not only in providing opportunities that come to campus, but in terms of mentoring and coaching so that I would be ready to perform at my best or to really understand what I'm getting into. Some careers aren't always what you'd expect them to be, but the Career Center also made it a point to really show you what you can really expect from different kinds of internships or different kinds of jobs. So that was very useful. In particular, Dean Litweiler, who is the international students dean, she's very useful also at understanding how this is different for international students versus U.S. students, which was very helpful because I think I needed an extra hand for that.
Since my sophomore year, I've been involved with the Pathways Mentorship program, and I've had a different mentor every semester. And this past semester, my mentor, an Amherst alum, is the Dean of Faculty at NMH. So, best mentor ever. He hired me. And, we met at Black Sheep, just in town. I actually went to Spanish class for a semester with his son. That's kind of how that worked out.
All three of you showed incredible leadership and contributed enormously to Amherst in the context of Amherst Uprising. And I wondered if you would talk a little bit about the events and what led to the uprising activities. It's not easy for people outside of the college, I think, to understand why we view the impact of it as positively as we do. And it would be helpful for you all just to talk about it from whatever angle makes sense to you.
So, Amherst Uprising kind of fits for me in a continuum of personal growth. So starting with Cuba really and studying abroad, I found that I couldn't talk to people back home because I didn't have a cell phone connection or internet access as available to me as I do here. And so I started having to write a lot and reflect a lot. And I realized how in the process of writing I could actually see myself on paper and distance myself from what was going on around me and have a new perspective about it. And I think that realization kind of manifested in my thesis, and I started asking questions about the process of writing, what it can do for Black women specifically. And as I was doing that, Amherst Uprising happened. And then I started listening to people's stories, and I realized that it wasn't just a question of writing, but of storytelling and being brave and vulnerable and sharing your truths. And so for me, given the context of my past year and my thesis, being in the space of Amherst Uprising and watching so many of my peers being so brave and putting themselves into a space where they could reflect and realize that their personal experiences were related to a set of social and political conditions on campus and that they weren't alone was so powerful. And so that's really, to put it in a nutshell, that's what Amherst Uprising became for me.
What do you hope its impact will be? Or what do you think it has already been?
I think for me personally, and this ties a little back to what Rachel was saying as well, I think one was a continuum of my entire experience at Amherst. So definitely my major, I think that's the cool thing about Black Studies is that it's so easily applicable to day-to-day situations and analyzing whole systems and everything down to the way that you are as a person, the way you exist in a community, as well as my involvement in the community. So I'm very passionate about community engagement and bringing people together across different sort of areas and sectors of the college. And that's really what I saw in that space. It was community building. And to me, it was all about how can we be better for each other and for ourselves, and how can we better support one another and make this a community that we deserve, the community that we all envision it could be. And I think that so much of it came from a place of love, and that's where all of my work comes from too. That's one of the things that I said when I spoke, is that I wouldn't have done anything that I did do or have been doing, if I didn't see so much potential in this campus. And as a senior, it's always really heartwarming to see that. I have such faith in the students that Amherst chooses to bring here. The community in my time has been incredible, and I have no doubt that it will continue to be really incredible on the way out. So,
I think for me, Amherst Uprising is really an opportunity. It has become now an opportunity to really strengthen the community on campus. And it's because, as Mercedes said, the students that I see that come here, our friends, our peers, are really selected because they do, to some extent, from admissions, they are bridge builders. They are not always going to conform to certain things. And I think that's really powerful for me to see at Amherst Uprising. Something that from admissions really blossoms later on, unfortunately. And then there's also the side of how to move beyond groups, how to really build a truly inclusive community, campus-wide. And that's one of the things, for example, that the student government has been facing, is how to be more than just a funding organization, but how to really advocate for students, the way that some student groups really do. And I think that's also an opportunity that in my time in the student government, I've gotten the sense that students really want the student government to be there for them, beyond funding, to really advocate for them in the ways. And so this is the opportunity that I see where all of this can start to come together, all these plans. And so I'm actually very, very hopeful to see the future.
I can also say that I came to Amherst because I wanted to be a part of a small, family-oriented community. And for those 3 days in the library, I saw people in one space that I see in different spaces all over campus every single day. And for that intersection to happen was so special, and something that I think I'm going to keep with me as I remember Amherst Uprising.
As you leave, I know that all of you will stay involved, but as you leave, thinking back on your experience here, thinking about the potential that you think was revealed in the context of the uprising, what one thing or two things do you think the college could do to continue building a more inclusive community?
I think for me, and that's sort of been the whole purpose of the cheerleading team, it's always reminding students of the potential that they have. And that was what was so important for me when I spoke sort of that Sunday, or I think that Friday night rather, is we're here because we can do it. Whether it's the work, whether it's being better people, whether it's connecting with one another, or just loving each other, we're here because we can. And sometimes it's hard to, under the crush of the work, or being, bogged down in the day-to-day concerns or issues, remember that you can. But there's no doubt in my mind, there was no doubt in the admissions staff's mind that you could be a fantastic member of this community. And so I think, that's part of what people who don't really understand cheerleading, that's really what it is. As simply as when you're cheering on a team, it doesn't matter if your team is winning or losing. You never change what you're saying. You always say that the team can do it. You always say that you believe in them. And you don't change that tune no matter what it looks like on the outside, because they're still the same team that won last week, even if they lose the next. And so I think just reminding that, being our own campus's cheerleaders, that all the students, the faculty, the staff, administrators, they can all do it. And keeping that with them as long as they continue here.
I think a lot of people who haven't been back to campus for a while will never have seen the cheerleading squad, the Spirit Squad, and a lot of people are surprised that we have one. Mercedes, I'm wondering how you came up with the idea and what reactions you got to it.
I had a pretty rough transition. I came from a very different, in some respects, school. It was a small, very small, all-girls private school in New York. And so coming here was kind of a shocker on a number of levels. And I think I just had a hard time acclimating to the new environment. And I would come home for breaks and just be really dejected and sad and feel like it wasn't living up to my expectations, or maybe I wasn't living up to its expectations and vice versa. And at one point my mom was just like, I can't see you like this anymore, do something. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, what do you want to do? Anything, what is it? And I sat down, I still have the list in my room at home. I just made a list of all the things that I wanted out of Amherst, and on it was a cheerleading team. Typical Amherst bookish fashion, I came back and went to research librarian, asked for books on cheerleading. And I read a bunch of books. And then I joined the team at Smith and would commute an hour both ways twice a week, including games on the weekend, for a semester. And I pitched the idea to Coach McBride and then Suzanne Coffey, who was the AD at the time. And I just gave them a PowerPoint presentation and was like, this is why I want to do it. I think it can help. And they took a chance on me. Student government took a chance on me. A lot of people, had faith in me. When sometimes I didn't have faith in myself, I didn't know if it would come together. And my friends joined onto a team that I didn't even really, the first practice was hilarious. I had no idea what I was doing. And they were just there in the back like, you're doing great. And I was like, But it was incredible. It was a really great experience. And through it, I got to meet a ton of different people. And that's really what continued and even furthered my love for different parts of the community.
Juan, Gabriel, were you in the AAS? Were you part of the student government when the idea came forward from Mercedes?
Yes. I think it's one of those moments where it clicks, because instead of looking at it like, can we fund this? This is the kind of thing we're looking for. This is the kind of thing we would want to facilitate or help others do, because Mercedes has a brilliant idea. And this is how you really advocate for students, how you build a community.
It's wonderful. Do you think it will continue without you, Mercedes?
Yeah, so last night we had our last practice. We watched Bring It On. And we've appointed co-captains. We're going to be meeting with athletics on Monday just to sort of pass the baton. And they're incredible. They're really stellar students, and they've taken off with it. I haven't even needed to tell them what to do. So I'm really proud of them, and I'm really looking forward to the future of the team.
And the other night we had our senior athlete banquet, and Mercedes received a well-deserved award for all the work that she's done. And you could tell from the way that people applauded and cheered for her that it's important to all of us. So
Thanks.
It's wonderful. We've talked in the past about the importance of mentoring, the kinds of mentoring students do of one another, the mentoring that faculty and staff do of students, and actually vice versa at times. Also alumni mentoring, and I know you've been part of the Pathways program, Rachel, and Juan Gabriel, you've thought a lot about alumni mentoring and the value that it brings. What would you say?
I think one of the things that I've learned at Amherst is really the importance of mentoring or mentorship. And I've been fortunate enough, for example, to have upperclassmen mentors, professors who are mentors, staff members who are mentors, alumni who are mentors. And they've helped me navigate both questions such as career decisions, personal problems, academic things. But I've also had the opportunity to be a mentor in some cases for others, for international students, for underclassmen. And I think mentoring is powerful, so powerful, because first, from a student point of view, it really helps you reflect on who you are, how you're doing. And the second thing is it really makes you be at your very best with those people you're mentoring. You're building a relationship with someone, and it's all born out of what Mercedes called love. It's really born out of caring for someone and wanting to help someone. So the mentorship opportunities here and really building upon those mentorship opportunities is something that I think is very powerful for just strengthening a community across class years, across current students and alumni. I think it's something that it holds something.
Each of you has told me separately that you will stay involved with the college and serve as mentors after you leave. Do I have that right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. There are, so one of the other reasons why I didn't leave Amherst prior to my sophomore year was also I just had such strong relationships with students here. Mm-hmm. And a lot of then seniors were integral to me finding a place here. And they really helped guide me through the college. And I'm still in touch with some of them today. And similarly, as Juan said, I've filled that role for other students too. And I think that it's once you create those sort of connections with people, it's impossible to leave a place entirely behind. And I don't think you should. And I definitely think, even if for nothing else, I think I will remain in touch with this community, because I think there are people here who need me. And that's part of what Uprising was, being there for people who need you.
Yeah, I knew back in 2012, getting that early decision from Amherst, I was committing to the school for life. I truly love this place and the people in it, and I'm going to be just on the road for 2 years, so I definitely plan on coming back and visiting campus. But I actually, like I said earlier, I worked for facilities for a semester, and so many of the people there, George and Kathy and Heidi, they've all really become family for me, and professors here and coaches and librarians and friends, and it's a community that I wouldn't ever want to distance myself from entirely.
I have a question for each one of you. Can you talk about a class that was especially important to you, meaningful to you, changed the way you think about something?
I have a class, I guess. And I just finished it yesterday. But the class is called Disabling Institutions, and it's with Professor Buehmiller. And the premise of the class is really to look at institutions, and institutions aren't big monolithic structures. Institutions are things like culture as well. And it's really looking at how institutions can really enable people to flourish as well as disable. And so what I really like about this class is that we weren't just looking at institutions, cultural or formal institutions, and criticizing them, but part of the class was really, so then what? What's the next step? And Professor Buehmiller and my classmates really delved into things like community organizing and what are the things that are necessary in order to make these institutions better enabling institutions for people to really be content or to fulfill their potential. And so I'm very fortunate to take that class, even though it was my last class in my last semester.
One of the biggest lessons that I'll take away from Amherst, and one that I hope continues to shape my decisions in the future, is the power of art and the power of truth and storytelling. And for the last 2 years, all of my classes have really contributed to that idea. But I'd say that started in my junior year with reading Panther Theory and Black feminist literary traditions, and taking those classes at the same time with Professor Dobrinsky and Professor Henderson, respectively, enabled me to see what kind of spaces can be formed by Black feminists in different social movements and political movements, and how they've been able to use art to advance their causes. And that's stuck with me ever since.
Yeah, I agree. I actually was going to say the exact same two classes as Rachel. A separate Henderson class was similarly themed. And I think also it was just so powerful in Panther Theory because we were reading really, really hefty works and essentially putting to undergraduates, here are these huge social movements and critiquing them. And these are like 18 through like 22-year-olds like critiquing social movements, and in every way, I could not separate that from what happened in Uprising, because we were able to read and study these movements and then say, we loved this, we didn't love that. I think something that was a huge part of it was intersectionality. Like coming out of that class, we realized, they didn't make space for a lot of other people. And Amherst is different. Amherst has a lot of different people in it. And one of the important points that we wanted to take away was, if we want this to be somewhere where everyone can be happy, we have to sing a different tune. It was really about how to apply this. This literally, and in the library, I could see the professors that had taught us these classes sitting there like, yeah, that was actually on the syllabus. Like, nice job.
Does any one of you have a story from your time at Amherst that you'll always tell, or that you imagine now you'll always tell?
Friends and I, so it was one of our friends' birthdays, and we were first years, so of course we were like, we don't need student jobs, so we were broke. And we were trying to figure out something to do. And we decided, so we were just hanging out and just joking around, we decided to make a rap song. And we stayed up. First we were like, we're just gonna knock it out in like an hour or two. People make music all the time. Like whole albums take what, like 3 hours? No, they don't. We wound up moving from Keefe, because it closed, to Stearns. We stayed up all night. Like we mixed the music, we recorded the sounds, we like edited the music, we wrote our own verse. Like, it was incredible. We stayed up and all night, then went to then went to Val in the same clothes, and people were like, what were you doing? We were like, we're about to be famous, like, please relax. And like, I was teary-eyed at one point, because I'm like, I'm gonna have to leave this school, like, I'm gonna be famous, I'm gonna have to leave this campus behind. And so we all take naps finally, because we were sleep deprived. And we sit down, we've texted a bunch of people. There was a senior at the time who's amazing, and he was like, I wanna hear it, like I'll send it to someone, and we're like, let's do this. We listened to the song, and I still have it. It's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. It was so awful. It was horrendous. And we just sat there and were stunned. We were like, what happened? Like, this was a masterpiece. And I think it was just, I could have done so much work in those hours that I didn't sleep. But at the same time, you know, those people are some of my best friends now. And those are moments where I just think back, and it's like that sort of irrational hopefulness, and these feelings of excitement and all these things are similar themes to that I'm feeling right now, right? With like 2 weeks left of school, and we're about to embark on this huge new journey. But I'm always going to take these relationships with me, these connections that I have with people. And my friends and I are going to be going away for senior week, and my friend was like, we should make another song. And I was like, no, never again, we're done.
What do you think you'll miss most about Amherst?
The people, easily, from all different backgrounds and all different groups and positions on campus. I'll miss the people. I went to icing with a friend yesterday, and that's what we were talking about, how just knowing that certain people aren't staples anymore. I'm a huge people watcher, and one of my favorite things to do, like, that Val renovation was the best thing ever, the changing of the seat, because there's now a high bar table, and I just sit there and just like watch everyone. And knowing that I won't be able to do that, and won't be able to see certain people and just say, hi, like, how was the game? What were you doing? How, your outfit looks great, like, oh, nice haircut, is very, very strange for me. It's strange for me to wrap my mind around.
You might be the first person who's ever told me the renovation of Val was a good thing.
The one fan.
The one fan, exactly.
I guess for me, it's also the people. It always comes down to the people. But with my life experience, the reason why it's people is because Amherst is home. And it's home just as much as where my parents live currently is home, or where I will live next year was home. And so it's hard to leave home. I'm going to miss home. Going home is going to another home doesn't mean this is no longer my home. And it's always going to be so. I'm going to be very excited to stay engaged and come back and visit my junior friends, and then visit my sophomore friends, and then stop coming back because it'll look a little bit creepy.
I'm working on manipulating time right now, and it's not going very well for me. For instance, I tried to walk really, really slowly to my last class, and I thought I could just spend a little bit more time saying hello to people. I texted my mom, I'm walking slowly, and she's like, go, baby girl, like, go. And so I think, yeah, I mean, like you guys said, undoubtedly the people. I mean, I woke up for breakfast this morning and realized that I was going to swipe into Z for my last time as a student at Amherst in breakfast. And just those moments I'm trying to cherish as much as possible.
Well, I thank all three of you for your willingness to sit down and talk. I'm going to miss all of you, each one of you separately, and all of you. But I know you'll come back, or you'll be in touch. And congratulations, all three of you have done such extraordinary work here of all kinds. And I'll see you again in about an hour.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.